Welcome back. As I previewed right before the break, I have a great guest joining me now to talk about this story. Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Senator, it's great to see you. We had talked about having you come on the show long before this. There's so many things to talk to you about, but this story is just, I've been wondering all day what your reaction was when you read it. Did you read it 5 times like me? What was your reaction when you read this story in The Atlantic?
It is stunning. I can understand Jeffrey's disbelief or thought that is this somehow contrived because it is so stunning and so incompetent and so dangerous in terms of the planning for this operation and who might have been on this text chain. But what really leaps out at me is that you have the director of national intelligence, you have the head of the CIA, and no one, it appears, bothered to say, hey, folks, should we really be talking about this here? Should we really be using a unclassified channel to talk about an operation, a detailed military operation that's going to take place in a few hours? That is just so striking to me. And it shows both the level of incompetence, but also a certain kind of arrogance that some of the folks on that had to know that they should never be discussing these things on a Signal chat. But there is a feeling that they're beyond accountability. I mean, who's going to hold them accountability? They can break whatever rules. They're stopping the FBI from doing background checks on people. They can deal with national security however they see fit. Of course, an incredible irony given all the attention to Hillary's emails, but just staggeringly irresponsible. And it's not just that they had a reporter by accident on this chat. They should have never been doing this on a chat to begin with. And what's more, who knows what phones they were using? Who knows the safety and security of those phones, whether a foreign government had already penetrated some of those communications. So the dangers are real. There should be a real accounting over this. But you can expect more of the reaction you saw from Hegseth, which is to attack the reporter rather than acknowledging their own dangerous incompetence here. Put pilots at risk potentially, but also it meant that the success of the operations could have been dramatically reduced if, for example, word got out to not just the Houthis, but allies of the Houthis like Iran that could have tipped them off, hey, here's when these attacks are going to start. Here's when you'll know that the next target is upon you. It's just staggeringly irresponsible.
I feel like the fallout of this we're going to feel for some time now, including how our allies react, what happens now, what other information may have been discussed over signal chains. There's lots of questions I have. At a minimum, I mean, I know we're not operating in a normal world. It does feel like someone should be held accountable, should resign or be fired. I know that's probably not going to happen, but you also were a prosecutor. Are there crimes? Could there be crimes that were committed here?
Well, there certainly could be.
Before I let you go, so much happening every day, and I just have to ask you about the story we've been talking about throughout the show, which is this reporting by Jeffrey Goldberg about him being included on a signal chain with sensitive national security information, including war plans. What was your reaction to that story?
I am outraged by this. This is, of all the things that we've been talking about, Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, all the cuts that are affecting people's lives, we're talking now about our military. We're talking now about our national security has been compromised because they're using a texting app to share plans about how they're going to attack the Houthis abroad. If someone had been on that chain that hadn't been a patriotic American like Jeffrey Goldberg, if someone who wanted to maybe get something out of it had been on that chain, it would have gone abroad. It would have been broadcast to other people. The Houthis would have known that our soldiers, our pilots were coming, and their lives would have been lost. So this is not, we're not kidding around anymore. The confusion that they're causing, the chaos that they're causing, the Trump administration, that is now gone to the Defense Department, our intelligence agencies, and is being effectuated so that our military is being put at risk and our national security is being put at risk. We can't stand this any longer. I mean, Pete Hegseth, which everybody knows he's unqualified to be the defense secretary, is responsible here. Donald Trump should fire Pete Hegseth.
We are back with that stunning piece of reporting in The Atlantic. Joining our conversation, MSNBC columnist and author of the newsletter To the Contrary, Charlie Sykes, is here. General Brian McCaffrey and Claire McCaskill are here as well. All right. I saved this piece of the reporting because I think there is so much to dig into here, Charlie, which is that Jeffrey gave us insights into J.D. Vance's view of Donald Trump. He writes, the account labeled J.D. Vance responded, making a noteworthy statement, considering that the vice president has not deviated publicly from Trump's position on virtually any issue. I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself. But there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, et cetera. Charlie, your takeaway from that piece of the exchange?
Well, I mean, we're seeing, the naked decision making, how the sausage is being made here, and the fact that there is some daylight between J.D. Vance and Donald Trump on all of this. But, this whole breach is so breathtaking. And I guess I want to make 3 quick points. I mean, number one, given the recklessness and the carelessness with this information, I think we can assume that it's not just Jeffrey Goldberg and The Atlantic that are listening into these conversations. It is also the nation's enemies. I mean, at this point, given the lack of security, is there any reason to believe that the Kremlin and President Xi are not also listening in on all of this? And secondly, given the extent of the data breaches throughout the federal government by this group, the question of competence, how confident can we be that information from the IRS and Social Security and others, Homeland Security, will not also be compromised? And finally, I wonder whether or not Donald Trump, in his retribution campaign, is going to target Jeffrey Goldberg, because there has to be scapegoats here. He's shown no hesitancy going after journalists and others. And I think it's going to be an interesting question how they respond to this, because this is a mess. This is a huge embarrassment. It is a huge vulnerability, and it casts tremendous judgment. I mean, raises tremendous questions about the judgment and the competence of the people at the very highest levels of this administration.
Help me understand, General McCaffrey, to whom does it fall to express to folks inside the Trump administration what a colossal mistake this was, right? I mean, does it fall to Trump himself? Does it fall to the head of DNI? Who is it that expresses to Hegseth, to Vice President Vance, that none of this was acceptable and that they have put our men and women in uniform at risk?
Well, look, there is no one of these principals in government who doesn't have some major outside their door who is fully aware of the directive to protect classified information, operational security. They would have known, and by the way, this is clearly not a one-off incident. They've been using Signal as a conduit for sensitive classified conversations probably since they came into government. And people undoubtedly have warned them, look, what you're doing is making us vulnerable to enemy monitoring, and not just the Russians, the Chinese, but there's an arrogance here to look down and say, well, obviously the Houthis and primitive people like they and the North Koreans couldn't penetrate this system, when the North Koreans, with 8,000 some odd professional hackers, routinely steal Bitcoin and monitor our communications. So again, in this case, short term, it placed American aviators at risk. Longer term, there's a lot of other conversations that are out there now that are in the hands of adversaries of the United States.
Claire, I'm just so struck by the fact that one of the things that Donald Trump campaigned on was this idea of making America safe. You really played into this feeling that Americans had that they were insecure, whether that was economically or whether that was from threats abroad or people that Donald Trump told them to be afraid of. So the fact that they are not taking national security seriously. The fact that you have Americans showing up at town halls to complain about DOGE and the cuts that are making America less safe in those regards, the fact that they are scared about their Medicaid, their Social Security. I imagine you're going to have folks who are now showing up to town halls to say, could you at a minimum take the national security of the United States seriously? Could you follow proper protocol? We didn't think we needed to ask you to just accomplish the baseline metric, and yet here we are.
Yeah, and what's really striking is that we have the vice president, we have the secretary of state, we have the head of the CIA, we have Tulsi Gabbard, who is, supposed to be the one who is the ultimate protector of information that should not fall into enemy hands. She has, and Jeffrey Goldberg used a great deal of restraint in not printing parts of these messages that would have potentially hurt people in terms of our methods and our ways of gathering intelligence in the Middle East. And by the way, this is all about an area of the world that is a powder keg right now. Yeah, they said some really bad things about Europe.
So, folks, people are tearing into Trump over this. Politicians, and it's going to come from Republicans as well, because this is insane. It's unacceptable. And it's unacceptable in a pan-partisan sense, even within the GOP right now, because it's just humiliating. So Democrats are mad about it, obviously, because it's a national security thing. It's humiliating for the country, of course. It just underscores how Donald Trump has put unqualified or underqualified people in charge of these top positions, and people even if they were qualified on paper, don't necessarily have the judgment to do these jobs, and that's why these leaks happened. A leak like this never happened in Trump's first term. And I'm not trying to defend the first Trump term, but there's something to be said for the fact that there were more traditionally qualified people, at least originally hired by Trump. Trump's first Secretary of Defense was more qualified. Trump's first Attorney General, more qualified. Trump's first National Security Advisor is more qualified. Right? They were still cronies in many cases, but they were qualified. And they didn't make mistakes like this. But obviously Republicans are mad. Some of them because they actually care about national security. Although for the most part, they're just mad because it makes them look like idiots. Because what Donald just did, or what Donald and his team just did, is they proved everything the Democrats were saying about them correct. They stuck their necks out to put Hegseth and all these other people in the cabinet. And it made them look like idiots. It really did. Because it wasn't just an ideological thing. These people have extreme views. It's that they are unqualified objectively compared to previous nominees from both parties. When you look at past people who got nominated for Secretary of Defense or for Attorney General from either party, they were often more qualified than this. And so these Republican senators stuck their neck out saying, Donald, we're doing this for you, and now you screwed me because my name is attached to Pete Hegseth. Not every Republican voted for him. A couple didn't. But every Republican that did, all but 3, I believe, this is their scandal too. They put Pete there knowing what he could do. And now it's on them, and they're not happy about that.